At 8 o'clock, just as the president went on the air, Ole Miss turned into a battlefield. Very few people heard the president's words.
This is a story of the Deep South, segregation, civil rights, and basketball. It's the story of a governor who tried his hardest to uphold Jim Crow.
For any government of laws and not of men, no man, however prominent or powerful, and no mob, however unruly or boisterous, is entitled to defy a court of law. If this country should ever reach the point where any man or group of men, by force or threat of force, could long deny the commands of our court and our Constitution, then no law would stand free from doubt. No judge would be sure of his writ, and no citizen would be safe from his neighbors.
And tried taking on the President of the United States at the time, John F. Kennedy.
In June 1962, a United States Court of Appeals ordered the University of Mississippi to admit James Meredith. It would take numerous attempts that year before the 29-year-old Air Force veteran and Mississippi native would become the first black student at Ole Miss.
In addition to opposing this man, James Meredith, we start with George Ireland, head coach of Loyola's basketball team. He would do something unpopular with white America, start black players in the 1960s. This went against the unwritten rule back in the day. You can play 2 black players at home and only 1 on the road. Jerry Harkness, one of the 4 black starters for the Ramblers, recalled a game at Houston. Fans would shout racial slurs at him and his team. He would say, quote, "I was scared to death." They would be denied haircuts on campus, be brought as tokens to parties, and Ireland would recall teams threw haymakers at his players on the court. From Bill Russell with the Boston Celtics to Loyola's collegiate basketball team, they had to find hotels that would accommodate because of segregation laws. The NCAA tournament would roll around. Loyola entered with a 24-2 record and dominated Tennessee Tech in the tourney, 111-42. The next round, a matchup with Mississippi State in East Lansing. As noted previously, Barnett, a staunch segregationist, caught wind of the matchup and acted how someone of his ilk would. On the campaign trail and beyond, Barnett would say, "There is no case in history where the Caucasian race has survived social integration. We will not drink from the cup of genocide." Meanwhile, James Meredith, seen here on the right, an Air Force veteran, would apply to the university twice and be denied twice. Then the Supreme Court would step in and rule he must be admitted. Barnett, however, would try to prevent Meredith's enrollment by assuming the position of registrar and blocking his admission. Each time Meredith would try and enroll, Barnett would be there to meet him, at times going as far as physically blocking his way. Once a deal was finally structured, Southern white supremacists rioted. They would attack U.S. Marshals, throw Molotov cocktails, and be armed to the gills. It was exactly what President Kennedy did not want. In the end, 166 marshals and 48 American soldiers were injured, while 2 civilians were killed in the melee. About 300 citizens were taken prisoner by marshals and federal troops. After the riot was crushed, the military continued to occupy Oxford for almost 10 months. On October 2nd, 1962, James Meredith would become the first black man to attend the University of Mississippi. For the National Portrait Gallery, Meredith was guarded 24 hours a day by reserve U.S. deputy marshals and Army troops, and he endured constant verbal harassment from a minority of students. When Barnett lost the Meredith fight, he turned his bigoted ways onto another target, and that was the Loyola Ramblers. Here's the thing. In the late 50s and early 60s, Mississippi State was good, like really, really good. They won the SEC championship in 59, 61, and 62, but would not enter the NCAA tourney because of an unwritten but strictly enforced rule. Take a crack at what this was. and don't overthink it. From the Sentinel newspaper, the all-white Bulldogs had turned down invitations to play in the NCAA tournament in previous seasons because of an unwritten Mississippi law that forbade teams to play integrated opponents. So long and short, Dean Colvard told the board he was going to send the team anyway. He was just going to do it. And in turn, that would go against state legislators. This was a huge monumental decision. They voted in favor until this. The powers that be, which included a state senator, would go full on search Team 6, and they would find what they were looking for. A sympathetic Chancery Court judge who issued an injunction. Dean Colvard, however, had other plans. Committed as ever, Colvard and the Bulldogs snuck out of town in the middle of the night. At the fixture, security was severely tight. The atmosphere beyond intense. After a back and forth, hard-fought battle, Loyola would come out on top 61-51. Loyola would go on to play and beat Illinois. Same with the Duke Blue Devils, another all-white team, and face Cincinnati in the championship, a matchup of the number one offense against the number one defense. With 15 minutes left and Cincy leading 45-30, Loyola would cut the lead to 2. With just 12 seconds remaining, Loyola's Harkness hit a game-tying field goal. They'd force overtime. And in the extra period, Vic Rouse would hit the game winner. Loyola were national champs. Through it all, what we remember is the game of change. And during the Obama administration, Loyola was honored at the White House. From then ESPN writer Dana O'Neill, Mississippi State returned home to a surprisingly warm reception from fans. A post-game newspaper survey found that Mississippians were overwhelmingly in favor of letting the team play the game, which shows so much about Barnett and racist ills in society. The game of change is something that I believe needs to be studied and cannot be forgotten for the role that many major players played and also the changing of the guard. Granted, it has been a slow crawl. The work that was done and still needs to be done should be acknowledged. And kudos to Mississippi State for participating and Loyola for going, competing, and winning. If there are any stories we missed, if there are any that you would like to submit, get at me and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. DMs are open. And also, if there is possibly any chance that you could contribute to our membership drive to keep us afloat, keep this channel going, keep other channels going, go to tyt.com/join. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. Have a wonderful day.
We like nonfiction. We like nonfiction, and we live in fictitious times. We live in a time where we have fictitious election results that elects a fictitious president. We live in a time where we have a man sending us to war for fictitious reasons.
At the 2003 Oscars, director Michael Moore called out the most powerful man in the world, Republican President George W. Bush, after his announcement that the U.S. was invading Iraq.
Whether it's the fictition of duct tape or the fictitious of orange alerts, we are against this war, Mr. Bush. Shame on you, Mr. Bush. Shame on you. And anytime you've got the Pope and the Dixie Chicks against you, your time is up. Thank you very much.
It was a stunning moment as the room filled with boos. Moore would win his first ever Academy Award for his documentary Bowling for Columbine, a stunning film on the school shooting massacre in Colorado.
Weapons of mass destruction have been found in Iraq.
After our politicians deceived the public,
I take the threat very seriously. I take the fact that he develops weapons of mass destruction,
and ran with this line over and over again to the American people.
I don't know of a worse lie one could tell other than a lie to take a country to war.
Moore spoke out at the Oscars and beyond.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead.
As did veteran Mike Preisner.
We know that Saddam Hussein is determined to keep his weapons of mass destruction.
Saddam Hussein will continue to increase his capacity to wage biological and chemical warfare.
Personally, I'd like to see a perp walk
coming out of the West Wing of the White House.
Do you think they're guilty of war crimes?
Absolutely.
Name them.
Lying to go to war. Start with that one. Right now, as we speak here live on CNN, there's an alternate reality taking place on another network. And they're over there today saying how great it is, Iraq's free.
You mean Fox?
It's, yes, I don't really want to, disparage them.
Well, Donald Rumsfeld, let me read a tweet from Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah, okay.
10 years ago began a long, difficult work of liberating 25 million Iraqis. All who played a role in history deserve our respect and appreciation.
Well, he's a war criminal, as far as I'm concerned. I don't understand why he, Bush, Cheney, Wolfowitz are still walking the streets. They can get away. The way they're trying to revise history now is by saying, well, it was a mistake, or we were given bad information. If let's say somebody sent a tweet to us right now, or sent me an email that said, Goldman Sachs downtown right now, in their basement, they have kidnapped children and they're holding them there. And I then tell the police this. What will happen to me when they go down to Goldman Sachs and find out that there's actually no kids kidnapped in the basement of Goldman Sachs? And you, of course, you would think I would want to go after Goldman Sachs, as Bush wanted to go after Saddam. But I think I'd be arrested. I think I'd be arrested if I produced false information. And to just say it's a mistake, it's if somebody ran over your 4-year-old, they get out of the car and they go, oh, I'm sorry. Mistake.
We cannot overstate how ballsy of a position this was to take at the time. This was a time, after all, when patriotism was at its peak, including the cover-up of former NFL player turned soldier Pat Tillman's death in the Middle East. According to the Watson Institute, there have been between 280,771 and 315,190 Iraqi civilians killed by direct violence since the U.S. invasion. The number of civilians killed by direct and indirect war violence is unknown, but likely much higher. Life-threatening damage to Iraqi healthcare and other infrastructure has not been repaired. Civilians are still dying in significant numbers.
Very shame the President of the United States is from Texas.
For more and many, an old quote rings true. Your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer. More would continue fighting against the ills of our country, from war to healthcare and gun violence.
The NRA has fought and kept Congress from approving any money to study why we have this epidemic. It is an epidemic. No other countries like this. They're not better than us. The Canadians have the same 23 chromosomes in every cell that we have. Why don't they shoot each other at the rate that we shoot each other? They have a lot of guns, by the way. It's a country of hunters. So there are guns. They don't kill each other. It should have been studied a long time ago, and sometimes it's the simplest things. Because first of all, these mass shootings in schools, they don't happen in the inner cities, do they? They don't happen in the inner city schools. They happen in rural and suburban communities, by and large. When the night that the gunman was atop the hotel in Las Vegas, firing essentially machine gun fire on a crowd of 20,000 people. CNN broke in. I was watching. I was watching Anthony Bourdain. Sometimes I wish I cooked, but I don't, so I can watch it on TV. Having said that, CNN breaks in. Breaking news: we believe there's a gunman on one of the top floors of the hotel. And first thought was, how do you know it's a man? Why'd you say gunman? Of course, I'm being facetious. Of course, it's a gunman. We already know, without finding out who's doing this, no woman is up there with a machine gun spraying bullets on a crowd of 20,000 people. I'd like to study that. I'd like to find out why that is, because clearly we are safe from 51% of the population.
The irony, of course, is the booze and music drowned out the rest of his speech, which he read years later. Now the microphone is lowering into the stage. They've struck up a band. The stage manager is giving me the heave-ho, and I'm bending down to the microphone. And anytime you've got the Pope and the Dixie Chicks against you, your time is up. This was the end of me, and they hauled me off the stage. So now, here for the first time ever, is the rest of my Oscar acceptance speech. speech. So before I close, I want to say a few words about nonfiction and how to use it as a cure for the many lies we are being told, and as a nonviolent weapon of revolution and change. I have read over the years that my first movie, Roger and Me, kicked open the doors for documentary films, the first documentary to be widely distributed to the shopping mall cinemas and multiplexes of America. The Academy, though, has not let me in as a member for 13 long years, not until just last month. I had heard all the reasons why Roger and Me, it's not a documentary. Documentaries are not supposed to be entertainment. You're using your frivolous humor, and it lessens the seriousness and the impact of what you're trying to say, etc., etc. Those of us from the now dead factory towns of the Rust Belt who, like me, have just a high school education. I barely made it out my senior year. I flunked English and I flunked math, but I got a D in French. We from the working class immediately know the class-based tone of those who speak to us, those who went to the finer schools or even any school at all. I encourage everyone watching at home tonight in the Gary, Indianas of America, in the Camden, New Jerseys, in the San Ysidros, the East St. Louis, and yes, the Flints and the Detroits and the Pontiacs and the Dearborns to pick up a camera and fight the power. Make your voice heard and stop this senseless war. Thank you and good night. I'm continually amazed at those over the years who go up in rooms such as these in front of some of the most powerful people in their industry and use their platform for the greater good. And in addition, when you see the Michael Moores of the world, Adam Yauchs of the world go up there at certain award shows, when they are given the opportunity in their speech and they shed light on an atrocity we all know is taking place and are blind to and immune to it and numb, that says something about that person. That says they have the courage to do something that they will get crucified for, but history will show they were on the right side. So shout out to Michael Moore and shout out to Jonathan Glazer. If there are any stories we missed, if there are any that you would like to submit, get at me and follow me on Twitter. Instagram, TikTok, DMs are open, and please, if you can, support the network, go to tyt.com/join.
Holy moly. What? Spin it? Yeah.
Flo Say is crazy. Flo Say, brother. I'm recording.
The folks who caught this could not believe it as much as we couldn't believe it when taking in this video. So what does this pertain to? Long and short, with time winding down and LSU losing to South Carolina in the SEC championship game, Malaysia Fulwiley stripped the ball and was fouled after Johnson shoved Ashlyn Watkins, who got in her face. Camila Cardoso, a 6'7" senior, shoved Johnson back and she hit the deck. Bench is cleared, but the most shocking moment came on the right-hand side of your screen. When Johnson's brother, Trayvon Milton, rushed the court, a police officer then detained Milton on the floor.
Did you see the two differences in the stories and the coaches? You see what Dawn Staley said and how she tried to downplay it? And you see Kim Mulkey, how she tried to upplay it? I understand this is an SEC championship game. There's a lot riding on it. LSU, if I'm not mistaken, hadn't beaten South Carolina in a very, very long time. And now we're in the SEC championship. And you know, when you take things, you mean it figuratively, not literally. Oh, we're going to fight. We're going to fight them tooth and nail. We're going to scratch and claw. We're going to do everything we can. You give nothing, you allow them to take nothing. But Kim Mulkey, instead of saying, you know what, sometimes when emotion is high, logic is low. And that was not what women's college basketball is about. And we've got to start doing a better job of holding Kim Mulkey accountable and responsible for some of her comments. We let that stuff slide because she's a national champion. I refuse to do that. I believe she was wrong in this instance. And Dawn Staley showed the utmost class and respect, not only for the game itself, but for her team and for the opposing team. I wish Kim Mulkey had to show that level of respect.
Per ESPN, Milton, who's 24 years of age, jumped over the scores table to reach the court. Police say Milton made his way to the court by pushing down an SEC employee and stepping on her shoulders to get past. Milton briefly made contact with Cardoso before he was led away by police. The AP would add, the brother of Johnson arrested and charged, which would be assault and battery, and disorderly conduct by the Greenville Police Department for his role in the fight after his sister was shoved to the ground by Cardoso during the SEC game. Here is a picture of Milton as he remains in jail at this time. This photo is via the New York Post. Dawn Staley would say, I just want to apologize to the basketball community. When you're playing in championship games like this in our league, things get heated. No bad intentions. Their emotions got so far ahead of them that sometimes these things happen. So I want to apologize for us playing a part in that. That's not who we are. That's not what we're about. But I'm happy for the players that were able to finish the game to get us another championship. From USA Today. In all, Cardoso ran to the scene, pushed Johnson to the ground in retaliation. A larger scuffle ensued and multiple players from both sides were ejected as the teams finished the title game with depleted benches. Cardoso will miss the first round of the NCAA tournament for her part in the fight. After the game, Staley apologized for her team's part in it, and LSU coach Kim Mulkey called the incident ugly, and then had this odd wish that Cardoso should have pushed Angel Reese instead of the smaller Johnson to see essentially what would have happened. Weird. A few thoughts. The first is, I don't know what the name of the device is that you put on your screen, but airplanes, waiting in line somewhere, grocery, I mean, like anything. Do you not want a sense of privacy? Second, how many videos have we seen where people are just so aloof in public, especially on their phones, where they communicate like they are at home? The stuff I have heard at the market, anytime when I'm just walking my dog in public, it's insane to see and hear the conversations that people are just so comfortable having. Third, there were a lot of people in the comments of, great Twitter handle, by the way, Pippin Ain't Easy, who said, hey man, why don't you mind your business? Hey man, why did you do this? Hey man, you should really back off. If it is broadcasted like an IMAX theater in that size font in front of you, I would imagine some would do way worse than what occurred here. And to call a player's brother a thug, which we all know the meaning of these days. Tyler, the Creator, when he won a Grammy, said it's just the correct way of using the N-word these days. Insane. Now, they did this person a service. Because what did they not do? Show her face. If this video reaches her, she knows what she's done. Will she feel any shame? No. Maybe embarrassment, but not shame. And I'm just curious, if that were to be Haley Van Lith's family member, if she gets shoved and they run out, what would her reaction be? I think we all know what her reaction would be. Tweet form, text form, Facebook form, doesn't matter. Meme form, we know. Yeah, they passionately went out there to protect their own. Whereas saying something like this, especially when clearly she's wearing red, she's a fan of South Carolina, a majority of their team is black. This word needs to be eradicated because there is no good use of it, period, for anybody. I wonder, though, what she would call the mob on J6. Would she call them thugs or would she call them patriots who stuck up for democracy and the right thing even though they're trying to kill it? Boy, I do wonder. If there are any stories we missed, if there are any that you would like to submit, get at me and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. DMs are open. And please, 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 if you can, we're doing a membership drive. Support the network. All of our content is free. Go to tyt.com/join.